Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to this week's webinar. I'm Laura Goldman, the dietitian with Premier Weight Loss, and this week's theme is all about breakfast. So we're going to be talking about how to start your day for some stable energy and hunger control throughout the day. And feel free to follow along, interrupt with any questions if you have them, and let's get started. As we say every week, just remember it is the quality of your calories that matters. And my aim today is to show you some ways to make that quality of the calories for your breakfast matter, or at least encourage you toward finding some type of breakfast options that are going to be high in quality. What we plan on covering today is to understand what a balanced breakfast actually is and why it matters, how our macronutrients, that's our carbs, protein, fats, etc., it can impact energy and appetite, how the GLP-1 medications also impact morning hunger cues, or really how GLP-1 medications are involved, since we're focusing on breakfast here, and what that potential conflict might look like. I also give some practical breakfast ideas, some challenges for the week, and leave time for any questions that you may have. And just hit that question mark at the bottom of your screen, and then that can alert me that you have a question. First things first, let's find out what a balanced breakfast actually is and any science behind it. What do we mean when we're talking about making a breakfast balanced? Because that's really where the important part comes in. I really want to emphasize and underline that. It's not just about eating whatever you want when you first get up. That's not exactly the productive way to go about this. So we want to look at what we really want to focus on to give us the energy we need, but also fuel us appropriately to help us meet our goals. So first and foremost, with always, as we do with every other type of meal, is to look at that protein. Ideally, we want to target 20 to 30 grams. And what protein does, numerous things, but it does help stimulate those satiety hormones that our body does create. And as you know, our bodies do create a GLP-1 naturally, as well as a couple other hormones. This is not the full list, of course. Protein also has the highest thermic effect of food, or it might be known as TEF, and that means basically the process of digesting any type of food does burn calories, and protein seems to burn the most calories. So why not burn some calories while eating? It does slow some gastric emptying, can help manage those blood sugar spikes, and I give a few examples here, such as eggs, cottage cheese, but also protein shakes. The next macronutrient I think we should focus on is fiber. This is an area that many of us fall short of, and we're not looking for tons of fiber. We want to start small, and you can target 5 to 10 grams. And what we're looking here is soluble fiber especially, but all fiber is valid here and important. But the soluble fiber found in oats, chia seeds, berries, flaxseed, etc. Make sure flaxseed is ground. Those can help manage your blood sugars as well. Soluble fiber in particular also can help lower LDL cholesterol, and fiber helps with gut health. There's fiber that the bacteria love to eat, the beneficial bacteria love to feast on, and there's also the fiber that can help keep you regular. So we want to try and focus on that. And then complex carbohydrates, which you are going to find some fiber-containing foods among these, of course. And what I do mean here is, again, the key word here is complex, because if there are not complex carbs, if we're talking about white bread or a Rice Krispies cereal or something like that, that is not going to be very helpful for blood sugar management or for feelings of fullness. Regardless, though, you do want to combine your carbohydrates, complex or not, but combine those with a protein and a fat to help manage any blood sugar rises. Complex carbs are important because they do provide glucose, and that is your brain's preferred fuel source. But something that can also help is to choose some low glycemic options. So oats make an appearance here again, whole grains. So we're even thinking about whole wheat, whole fruits, and even a sweet potato. If maybe you're having a morning sort of hash preparation, you could have some sweet potato in there. But I do want to comment on GLP-1s and breakfast. There is a chance that you may be experiencing some reduced appetite, and maybe it's more obvious and notable in the mornings. However, consistently skipping meals is generally not advised, and my main concern about this is just that risk of those nutrient gaps. With a decreased appetite for the entire day, most likely, if it's especially pronounced in the morning, or maybe you're just not used to eating a breakfast, I understand that definitely, but because we're having a reduced appetite and reduced intake throughout the entire day, skipping a meal of any kind is a bit more impactful nutrition-wise because, again, we're having fewer calories, so we really want to make them count. And since we can't do a bunch of calories all at once, it's best to spread that out, and then we want to try and have at least another opportunity in the morning to get in those nutrients. And also skipping can lead to that loss of muscle because of the lack of enough nutrition. And there are some people who may feel a possible rebound of hunger or snacking later in the day. I do want to make sure, though, that you know that a full meal is not needed, especially if you are not a breakfast person. You can aim for some small, nutrient-dense foods or drinks. And breakfast is whatever you want it to be. So it doesn't have to be the typical breakfast food. It can be a sandwich with whole wheat bread. It can be leftovers from the night before if you had that well balanced. Anything is possible in the morning. It's just what works for you. To touch on the case against skipping breakfast, also for people in general, is that there is a correlation with greater calorie intake later in the day and worse overall diet quality for people who do habitually skip breakfast. So there's some implication there that starting your day with breakfast can be a healthy option. And protein at breakfast seems as though it may have a stronger beneficial effect on your muscle maintenance and growth. So there may be a little more inspiration of that protein building or muscle building when we're eating protein at breakfast. And that is a potential motivator there as well. I do want to pause though, and I made a special emphasis to put this slide in here with a fact check because you may be asking or you may be thinking about the phrase, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And maybe you believe that wholeheartedly, or maybe you question it. And so the answer to whether or not it is the most important meal is not necessarily. So it's been around since the night, that sort of concept and that idea has been around at least since the 19th century. In particular, John Kellogg, so one of the forefathers of the Kellogg's cereal brand, promoted it in his Battle Creek Sanitarium, where he was essentially running a health clinic. And so he really encouraged that for health. However, there was also a commercial opportunity to be had. And so the company, I believe it was General Foods, they also, they had that commercial push with an example with this advertisement here, eat a good breakfast, do a better job. But essentially, breakfast cereal companies used this as a marketing tool to help inspire sales. However, when we're talking about people on GLP-1s, I do think it can be very important because, again, we're trying to avoid those nutrient gaps. And eating breakfast is correlated to overall healthier eating patterns. There is a registry of people who have had successful weight loss and been able to maintain that loss, and they consistently show during their during sort of a questionnaire that they fill out about their secrets to success, essentially, they do cite breakfast eating. And so there is something to think about there. And so I wanted to at least let you know that it can and is important, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the most important. And everyone is individual. And so it is important in different ways and different amounts, probably for quite a few people. But I wanted you to keep this in mind, especially on GLP-1s. So let's talk about building that breakfast. Wanted to give a few examples here with potentially touching on different needs. So we were talking about low appetite. One option is to make a smoothie because drinking your calories, drinking your protein can oftentimes be easier to get down. But I wanted to also provide a recipe of essentially a yogurt parfait where you've got the Greek yogurt, anywhere from about 3/4 of a cup or so, plus some chia seeds and some berries. You're already seeing 18 to 20 grams of protein and some 6 to 8 grams of fiber. Or you can make a GLP-1 friendly smoothie with some whey or plant protein of your choice, plus whatever additions work for you. This is just one example. And you can still get a decent amount of protein and fiber and sip that throughout the morning. You don't have to down it all in one gulp. For quick prep, though, if we're trying to look on something really on the go, but we're still preparing it, because I do think it's important that you can also think about grab and go options. But a quick prep, just think about scrambling some eggs or making an omelet with some spinach and any other vegetables of choice, and one slice of whole grain toast. You can put the eggs on top of it, and you've got yourself either a sandwich or an open face. And this doesn't take much time at all. The most time is probably cracking the eggs. And for batch prepping, so if you have zero time in the mornings and you want to have something ready to go, there are some things that you can make the day ahead, or even have things prepped further ahead, as long as they don't go bad in that amount of time. And one option that's become more popular lately are overnight oats. So again, here is an outline of a very basic overnight oat. This is using some Greek yogurt, as well as some chia seeds and berries. If that's a little too thick for you, you can thin that out with some milk or water of your choice, but this is one way to get started there. Back to the low appetite, especially in the mornings on GLP-1s. As I mentioned before, a normal breakfast really is not required. You don't have to sit down to a huge dish or anything. You can start small with anywhere from 100 to 200 calories. As long as we're getting a little bit of protein and fiber, that's still better than skipping completely. I would even be happy if you did 3 pistachio nuts, just to get something in you started. And that can slowly, hopefully, build over time to a little more than just 3 pistachios, but moving forward from there. As I said before, drinking is easier than eating, so protein shakes or smoothies, kefir, they're all valid options. I gave a couple examples of some high protein shakes available out there. This Oikos protein shake even has 5 grams of fiber, which I was unaware of until I was putting these slides together. And when I was talking about grab and go options or packing leftovers, one grab and go, and you may have seen these in one of the offices, are these edamame beans. And I think they're absolutely delicious. They are only about 100 calories with 11 grams of protein. And that's a great way to still start your day if trying to go for 20 is a bit overwhelming. And we've already reached our challenge time for the week. So the first challenge is just to focus on that protein first breakfast. So if you're used to milk and cereal in the morning, then try and find a way to get in 20 grams of protein. It can even be a protein-based cereal if you just really enjoy that type of food in the morning. You can use one of the suggested ideas that I gave an example earlier, or feel free to create your own. Or challenge number 2, if you already know the type of breakfast you like to have and you know that you can prep it in advance, try to pick one day this week to prepare that breakfast ahead of time so that way when you get up the next day, you're ready to go. I oftentimes will do this if I have an early morning meeting or an early morning gym session. I will go ahead and pre-pack my breakfast so that way I just walk out the door and then it will be there waiting for me after I'm done. I did give some examples here. So overnight oats, like we talked about, or like I do, some pre-portioned Greek yogurt plus some berries. Or you can even have some hard-boiled eggs and cut fruit ready to go. And that way, your busy morning, it's already taken care of, and you can even take it in, as long as it's sealed up, in the car, and you're ready to go. A balanced breakfast basically comes down to the three main areas here, which is protein, fiber, and complex carbs. You want to try and aim for 20 to 30 grams of protein if possible. But if your appetite is low, try to aim for those nutrient-dense options. Even if they're not meeting that 20 grams, you can still try and find a good nutrient-dense option. And just remember that skipping breakfast can increase those risks for nutrient gaps and loss of muscle. So try and get in something. And remember, it's progress over perfection in the long haul. And with that, I'll leave it open for questions. Okay. Well, I hope you found this helpful and informative and maybe gave a few new ideas for some breakfast items that you can have. So feel free to try those out and let us know how they work. Or if you have any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to let myself or the staff at Premier Weight Loss know. We're always happy to help and we're happy to get answers to you whenever you need. Thanks so much and have a good one.